Cassidy Morgan was having an absolutely normal Tuesday fixing a carburetor in her auto shop when the aliens showed up. Not the take me to your leader type with a dramatic entrance. More like the we've been watching your species for centuries and finally got approval from bureaucratic overlords to add you to our collection type. They were efficient, clinical, and completely unprepared for Cassidy Morgan. Human female, you have been selected for the Galactic Federation Species Integration Program, announced the tall blue alien with too many eyes and not enough manners. You will represent Earth as we evaluate your species' potential for full Federation membership. Cassidy looked up from her wrench, blinked twice, and said absolutely nothing. You will be provided comfortable accommodations during your mandatory participation, continued the alien, who had introduced himself as Commander Vrital. Resistance is unnecessary and would reflect poorly on your evaluation. Cassidy stood up, wiped her greasy hands on her overalls, and proceeded to say nothing whatsoever. Did the translator malfunction? Vrital asked his subordinate, a green blob with tentacles named Plex. Is the primitive responding on frequencies we cannot detect? Plex waved some sort of scanner in front of Cassidy's face. No, sir. The Deathworlder is simply not speaking. And that was the beginning of Cassidy Morgan's decade-long vow of silence. Not that she had planned it that way at first. Initially, it was pure shock, combined with the stubborn belief that if she ignored the aliens hard enough, they might realize they'd made a mistake and return her to her garage in Pittsburgh. But when they didn't, and the days turned to weeks, turned to months, the silence became her power. The Galactic Federation called Earth a death world, a planet so hostile that its inhabitants must be naturally aggressive and primitive to survive. They expected humans to be loud, violent, and simple. Cassidy's silence confused them utterly. They couldn't understand why the Deathworlder wasn't demanding release or trying to fight her way free like their research suggested she should. Perhaps its cognitive functions are limited, suggested the xenobiologist with mandibles where a mouth should be. Perhaps it's plotting something, countered the security chief, who had evolved from paranoid prey animals. But Cassidy Morgan just watched, listened, and said absolutely nothing at all. For 10 years, Cassidy Morgan maintained her vow of silence aboard the massive Federation station orbiting a star she didn't recognize. Her accommodations were comfortable enough a habitat engineered to simulate Earth conditions inside a massive biodome. She was their only human specimen, a fact she gathered from the constant parade of scientists who came to observe her daily routines. Commander Vrital was assigned as her permanent liaison, a position that evolved from prestigious to punitive as Cassidy's silence drove him to the brink of what passed for insanity in his species. It's been 7 years, 3 months, and 16 standard cycles, Vrital reported to the Federation Council, his upper eyes twitching uncontrollably. The human still refuses verbal communication. She follows instructions, performs physical tests, and appears to be learning our systems, but she won't say anything. The Council, a collection of beings representing the 37 dominant species of the galaxy, murmured with passive-aggressive disapproval. For a race that communicated primarily through biological light displays, the Chief Counselor's dim glow spoke volumes about their disappointment. Perhaps more aggressive persuasion techniques, suggested Counselor Grech, whose species evolved from carnivorous fungi and still maintained certain unsavory tendencies. We've tried everything except actual torture, which is forbidden by Section 12 of the Integration Code, Vrital replied. We've offered rewards, threatened isolation, created artificial emergencies. Nothing provokes a vocal response. What the Council didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that Cassidy's silence was far from passive. Over those 10 years, she had learned 6 alien languages by listening to her captors. She had memorized the station's layout through her supervised walks. She had studied alien biology during her mandatory medical examinations. Most importantly, she had discovered the truth about the arena. The arena was the Federation's ultimate test for developing species. Every 10 years, representatives from prospective member worlds competed in increasingly difficult physical and mental challenges against established Federation species. It was supposedly a peaceful evaluation method, but Cassidy had overheard enough to know better. Species that performed poorly remained in protected status, essentially glorified Federation zoo exhibits. But those who succeeded earned actual rights. In year 9 of her captivity, Cassidy began her physical training in earnest. The aliens mistook her new exercise regimen as acceptance of her fate, perhaps even eagerness for the upcoming arena trials. The human has increased its muscle mass by 12%, reported the medical officer. Perhaps it has finally understood its purpose here. Vractail was less convinced. I don't trust this silence. 10 years without a word. It's unnatural. On the eve of the arena announcement, Plex, who had been promoted twice during Cassidy's captivity, approached her habitat with unusual caution. Human Cassidy, he began, his tentacles twisting nervously. Tomorrow you will be presented as Earth's representative in the Grand Arena. This is a great honor. The entire Federation will be watching. He paused, hopeful. Perhaps you might wish to say something now. A statement for your species, perhaps? Cassidy looked up from the strange fruit she was eating, smiled pleasantly, and continued her meal in perfect silence. Plex's tentacles drooped in defeat. I've lost so many credits betting you'd speak before the arena, he muttered, slithering away. Little did he know that Cassidy Morgan had been preparing for this moment for exactly 10 years. The Grand Arena of the Galactic Federation was less Roman Colosseum and more intergalactic game show set. Hovering cameras captured every angle, holographic advertisements for products Cassidy couldn't pronounce floated above the spectator rings, and in the center booth sat the most obnoxious being Cassidy had encountered in her decade of alien captivity, Gloxnar, the arena announcer. Sentience of all classifications. Gloxnar's voice boomed through the arena, his purple-faced tentacles quivering with excitement. Welcome to the 342nd integration trials. The crowd, thousands of aliens representing hundreds of species, erupted in what Cassidy assumed was applause, though it sounded more like a combination of shrieking, clicking, abuse, and flatulence. Today we welcome 14 new species seeking the glory of Federation membership. Gloxnar continued, his 7 eyes blinking in sequence for dramatic effect, and one very special contestant from the Deathworld classified as Earth. The hovercam swooped down to capture Cassidy's face. She stood perfectly still in the blue jumpsuit they'd provided, her expression neutral, her mouth firmly closed. The human representative has become something of a legend among Federation scientists, Gloxnar announced, his voice dropping to what he clearly thought was an intriguing whisper but still rattled the arena's foundations. For 10 cycles, this Deathworlder has maintained complete vocal silence. Will the arena finally make her speak? Place your bets now. A holographic betting board appeared above the arena. The odds against Cassidy were astronomical. Federation citizens could bet on anything from whether she'd speak during the competition to how quickly she would be eliminated. The consensus seemed overwhelmingly negative. 7-to-1 odds she cries after the first challenge, muttered a tentacled spectator near the participants' holding area. I've got 20 credits saying she begs for mercy in the second round, replied his companion, a being that appeared to be mostly eyeballs. The other representatives from non-member worlds looked at Cassidy with a mixture of pity and contempt. Most were tall, muscled beings from gravity-light worlds who had trained their entire lives for this opportunity. Cassidy, with her average human build and perpetual silence, seemed hopelessly outmatched. Commander Vractail approached her before the first event. Human Cassidy, I am required to inform you that withdrawal is permitted at any stage. Simply speak your forfeit clearly for the records, and you will be returned to your habitat. Cassidy smiled politely and said nothing. The first challenge tests adaptability and problem-solving, he continued, mandibles clicking with frustration. You will face the maze of shifting realities. In pools. Dulcis, no human has ever. He stopped, realizing the futility of explaining anything to someone who wouldn't respond. Just try not to embarrass your species entirely, he finished before walking away. What Vractail and the Federation didn't understand was that humans had evolved on a planet where conditions changed constantly, where adaptation wasn't just a survival skill but a way of life. And Cassidy Morgan had spent 10 years studying every species, every technology. and every rule the Federation had unwittingly exposed to her. As the first challenger entered the maze and promptly became hopelessly lost in its constantly shifting passages, Cassidy folded her arms and waited. The crowd's attention was already turning to the next betting opportunity. How many steps would the silent human manage before failure? They had no idea what was coming. The maze of shifting realities turned out to be less of a challenge for someone who had spent a decade memorizing the quirks of alien technology. Cassidy noted the subtle patterns in the holographic walls, the barely perceptible hum that preceded each shift, and simply walked through the entire course without a single misstep. The crowd fell so silent you could hear a Flutonian's wings drop. Incredible. Glocksnar's voice shattered the silence. The human Deathworlder has completed the maze in record time, and still without uttering a single sound. The betting boards flickered and updated frantically. Cassidy could see Commander Vrick staring at her with all four of his eyes widened to maximum capacity. Perhaps it was luck, someone in the official box muttered. Primitive beings occasionally stumble into success. The second challenge was the Pillar of Elemental Assault, where contestants had to climb a column while being bombarded with various atmospheric conditions. When frozen rain pelted Cassidy's face, she didn't flinch. When hurricane force winds threatened to tear her from her handhold, she adjusted her body position and continued climbing. Earth's weather systems had prepared her well for this particular torture. By the third challenge, a puzzle involving quantum probability, the crowd had shifted from dismissive to curious. When Cassidy solved it in half the allotted time, curiosity became fascination. The silent human continues to defy expectations. Glocksnar announced, his face tentacles practically knotting with excitement. Could this Deathworlder be the surprise of the century? In the participants' area, the remaining competitors watched Cassidy with new wariness. One in particular, a towering, scaled being with 4 arms and a permanent sneer, approached her between events. "I am Drazkor, 7-time arena champion," he announced, looming over her. "Your primitive luck will end when you face me, human. I will make you scream for mercy in languages you didn't know you could speak." Cassidy looked up at him, smiled pleasantly, and took a sip from her water container. Drazkor's scales flushed an angry crimson. "Your silence is not wisdom. It is the empty vacuum of a mind too simple to form words." From across the chamber, Commander Vrick watched the exchange with mounting concern. "The human is antagonizing Drazkor," he murmured to Plex. "Is she suicidal or simply unaware of his reputation?" "Perhaps she doesn't understand the danger," Plex suggested, his tentacles twisting nervously. "Drazkor has hospitalized every opponent he's faced. She understands more than she lets on," Vrick replied. "Far more." By the semi-finals, only 4 competitors remained: Drazkor, a gelatinous collective intelligence from the Andromeda Galaxy, a robotic representative from the mechanical worlds of Sector 9, and Cassidy. The challenge was combat-oriented, a test of physical prowess against automated defenders. The collective intelligence was eliminated when it couldn't coordinate quickly enough. The robot advanced with perfect efficiency. Drazkor bulldozed through his trial with brute force and unnecessary violence, playing to the crowd with each destroyed defender. When Cassidy's turn came, the audience leaned forward in anticipation. Would the silent human finally meet her match? What they witnessed instead was a masterclass in economy of motion. Cassidy didn't fight the defenders, she redirected them, used their momentum against them, and occasionally employed precise strikes to vulnerable connection points she had identified during other competitors' attempts. She completed the course with the highest score and lowest energy expenditure. Unbelievable. Glocksnar's voice was reaching new registers of excitement. The finals will feature Drazkor, the undefeated champion, against the silent human from Earth. Place your final bets now. The betting board exploded with activity. While Drazkor remained the heavy favorite, a surprising number of Federation citizens were now placing credits on the human dark horse. In the Federation Council's private box, urgent discussions were taking place. "This is unprecedented," hissed one councillor, "a primitive Deathworlder advancing to the finals." Perhaps we underestimated this species, suggested another. Or perhaps, said the chief counselor, biological lights pulsing slowly, we have been misled about the nature of humans altogether. The final challenge was simple in concept but brutal in practice. Direct competition between the remaining contestants. Draz Kaur versus Cassidy Morgan. 4 arms against 2, scales against skin. Lifelong training against whatever mysterious preparation Cassidy had undertaken during her decade of silence. The arena transformed into a circular platform suspended over what appeared to be bottomless space. Falling meant elimination and potentially serious injury. Contestants, prepare for the final trial. Glocksnar announced as hovercams swarmed around the platform. The rules are simple. Remain on the platform while removing your opponent. No lethal tactics permitted, technically. The way he emphasized that last word made it clear that technically left considerable room for interpretation. Across the galaxy, billions of beings tuned in to watch the unexpected matchup. Gambling fortunes were changing hands by the second. Draz Kaur entered the arena to thunderous approval, his 4 arms raised in premature victory. He wore lightweight battle armor that enhanced his already considerable strength, and his scales had been polished to a gleaming crimson. I will make the human speak today, he promised the crowd. I will extract sounds no one has heard in 10 years. Bisinai. When Cassidy stepped onto the platform in her simple blue jumpsuit, the contrast couldn't have been more striking. She carried no weapons, wore no armor, and most notable to the watching galaxy said absolutely nothing. Commander Vrick watched from the official's box, his 4 eyes unblinking. 10 years, he murmured. 10 years of silence leading to this moment. Begin. Glocksnar's voice echoed across the arena. Draz Kaur didn't hesitate. He charged directly at Cassidy, all 4 arms extended to grapple her off the platform in one decisive move. It was a tactic that had worked against countless opponents before overwhelming force applied without hesitation. Cassidy sidestepped at the last possible moment. The move was so precisely timed that Draz Kaur's momentum carried him dangerously close to the platform's edge. He caught himself with one of his lower arms, spinning around with a snarl. Stand still, primitive, he growled. Cassidy simply stood in a relaxed stance, hands loose at her sides. The crowd was going wild. This was not the quick victory they had expected. Draz Kaur attacked again, this time more cautiously. He feinted with his upper right arm, then struck with his lower left. Cassidy blocked the strike and used Draz Kaur's own force to spin him off balance. Extraordinary. Glocksnar commentated. The human is using Draz Kaur's superior strength against him. A classic Deathworld tactic. For 20 minutes, the battle continued. Draz Kaur grew increasingly frustrated, his attacks becoming wilder, less controlled. Cassidy remained economical in her movements, never striking unless it served a specific purpose, never wasting energy on displays or unnecessary aggression. To fight back properly. Draz Kaur roared, his scales now flushed almost purple with rage. Are all humans such cowards? In the official's box, Vrick leaned forward. She's not fighting like a Deathworlder, he realized suddenly. She's fighting like someone who has studied Draz Kaur's species for years. That was exactly what Cassidy had done. For 10 years, she had observed the Federation's strongest species, including Draz Kaur's scaled kind. She knew their biology intimately, including the fact that their thermal regulation required periodic cooling vents through their scale seams. As Draz Kaur's body temperature rose with exertion and anger, Cassidy waited patiently. When the first scale seam opened slightly on his neck, invisible to most observers, but exactly what she had been waiting for, she struck with lightning precision. One finger, applied with perfect pressure to the exposed neural cluster beneath. Draz Kaur froze mid-attack, his 4 arms suddenly limp, his legs buckling beneath him. He collapsed to his knees, eyes wide with shock. What did you do to me? He gasped. But Cassidy didn't answer. She simply placed one hand on his chest and pushed gently. The mighty champion toppled backward off the platform, plummeting into the safety nets below. The arena exploded. Nothing like this had ever happened in Federation history. A human, a representative of a non-member species, had defeated the reigning champion without speaking a single word or landing a single conventional blow. Incredible. Unbelievable. Unprecedented. Glocksnar was practically hyperventilating into his microphone. The silent human has won. I repeat, the Deathworlder from Earth has defeated Drazkor. As medical teams rushed to attend to the temporarily paralyzed champion, Cassidy stood alone on the platform, her expression unchanged, her mouth still firmly closed. The entire galaxy held its breath, waiting for her to finally speak. The Grand Hall of the Federation Council had never been so packed. Representatives from all 37 member species crammed into the chamber. Their various appendages, sensory organs, and communication apparatuses all focused on the small human female standing before the council dais. The chief councillor's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with formal dignity. Human Cassidy Morgan of Earth, you have performed extraordinarily in the integration trials. The council acknowledges your species' potential and extends provisional membership to Earth in the Galactic Federation. Camera drones hovered around Cassidy, transmitting her image to trillions of beings across the galaxy. Everyone was waiting for the same thing. Would the silent human finally speak? Commander Vricktail stood to one side, his mandibles clicking nervously. 10 years of failure to extract a single word from this creature weighed heavily on his professional record. As is tradition, continued the chief councillor, the successful representative may address the council. Do you wish to exercise this right? The chamber fell into absolute silence. Betting pools across 17,000 worlds reached their final moments. Would she maintain her silence even now? Had she perhaps lost the ability to speak after so many years? It was her species unable to communicate vocally under certain conditions. Cassidy Morgan looked around the chamber slowly, making deliberate eye contact with several key council members. She straightened her posture, cleared her throat softly, and finally opened her mouth. I've been listening, she said, her voice clear and strong despite a decade of disuse. For 10 years I'd been listening while you called my world a death world, my species primitive, and measured our worth by whether we could entertain you in your little games. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Vricktail's 4 eyes widened to their physiological limits. During those 10 years, Cassidy continued, I learned your languages, studied your biology, memorized your technologies, and understood your weaknesses, all while you assumed I was too primitive to comprehend your advanced civilization. She smiled then, the same pleasant, empty smile she had worn for 10 years, but now filled with unmistakable meaning. Earth isn't a death world. It's a training ground. And humans aren't primitive, we're just really good at letting others underestimate us until it's too late. The chief councillor's bioluminescence flickered with alarm. Are you threatening the Federation, human? Not at all, Cassidy replied smoothly. I'm accepting your offer of membership with amended terms. She produced a data tablet none of them had noticed her acquiring. I've taken the liberty of drafting a more equitable arrangement. You'll find Earth expects actual diplomatic relations, not zoo exhibits. As the Council collectively processed this unprecedented turn of events, Glocksnar's amplified voice cut through the chamber. Breaking news. The silent human speaks, and she's apparently been planning this diplomatic coup for a decade. From the medical recovery chamber. Drazkor watched the transmission with newfound respect. The human never needed to fight at all, he realized. She chose the arena to make a point. Back in the council chamber, Commander Vricktail finally approached Cassidy. 10 years, he said, mandibles twitching with a mixture of irritation and reluctant admiration. You could have spoken at any time. Cassidy Morgan, no longer silent but still economical with her words, simply shrugged. Sometimes the best way to understand someone is to shut up and listen. As the Federation Council hastily reviewed Earth's amended membership terms, news was already spreading across the galaxy. Be very, very careful what you say around the humans. They hear everything, especially when they're not talking. And across 17,000 worlds, a valuable lesson was learned. Silence isn't always a sign of weakness. Sometimes, it's the most dangerous sound in the universe.